All right, so at first, I just wanted to mention this really quickly. I'm not really sure exactly what this is called. I think it's called the critics poster, but some people call it the what people are saying poster. And it's just a poster with a bunch of different quotes from critics, magazines, media, and other like important filmmakers about how they perceived the movie, how good it was. And you just handpick the certain words or phrases that make it seem like everybody's in love with the movie and put it on the poster. It's different from a regular poster in that most of the poster or a big portion of it is actually taken up with the ratings and the quotes from the reviews. And the poster's used as a marketing material to show how the film is being received to others. So they can, sometimes you'll see in a trailer as well, they'll put these at the end, like this for the second or third trailer they come out with, they'll put the reviews that are coming out. And it's kind of the same thing. It's just a poster of that. So I'm going to just quickly compare a few of these. Not really anything that different from what we talked about. It's just you have the reviews and the quotes on here. And obviously you can't do this until you get reviews back. So that's why most movies will invite the press to see the movie at private events. And they'll have like the ability to see it and review it before the movie actually comes out. So they already have all of these reviews and they have all of this stuff they can share with everybody. And this is one way they do it. So if we just look at like the regular poster, or this is one of the posters for the Joker, and then you can see the difference between that and the one that has all of the quotes. And then they say like where those quotes are from. Sometimes on the independent films, they'll try to do these, but they won't have big publications. So they'll use like really small publications, but they said something really good about the film. I would say, generally speaking, you want to put the best, the most popular publications first, and just pick what they said, even if it's not the best wording, because it's better known. Unless all you have is smaller publications, then you can use all of those just to make it kind of match the film. But you can see how they kind of rearrange some of the assets just a little bit. They move him over, make him a little bit smaller in comparison to the poster, so they can put all of this. He's a bit over to the left, I think, just a bit. Yeah, definitely. You can see like part of his eye, part of his nose, but it gets cut off right here. They move him over so that they can put all of these on a clear blank background. You also have this with other movies. It's the same thing. Some of them do like the star ratings and some of them do the quotes. Just depends on what kind of ratings you got and what you think is better to put on there. But it's the same thing. You just rearrange the assets of the poster so you can add in all of the different quotes, ratings, and whatever else to make it look like people are really enjoying the film who have seen it. And like I said, it kind of takes up the majority of the poster. Sometimes it'll be on one of the posters that weren't used, or like a different variation on the same poster, kind of like this. So you can also see that they don't always use the final poster for it. Sometimes they have multiple posters and they'll use one that's not utilized as much and put it on there instead. Or other times they'll use the exact same poster and just put the stuff over the top. And you can see that on this one, they have like some stuff in the background here, and they lower her down and they make this stuff smaller so that they can put all of the quotes on top, and they get rid of the cross in the background so that it's on a clear background. So you want to be thinking about that if you're going to make a poster like this. It needs to be, the main reason you're making a poster like this is so people can read these reviews. So it needs to be legible. It needs to, the font and the color needs to match the poster, or it could just be black on white. But it needs to, you don't want it to like, you don't want to get too fancy with it really. You just want to keep it simple. And you want to make sure that it's legible, if nothing else. You want to make sure that it's easy to read. Also, you can see some of these are doing it like if they have smaller publications, it's very small compared to the actual quote. And that's say you see the quote first, and then if you really look for it, you can see what the publication is. But the ones that have the bigger publications like New York Post and Some of the other bigger ones, they'll usually have them in bigger letters so they can see that it's a big publication. But the movies that don't have it, they put the publication really tiny so you can not really see it unless you really look for it. But does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything to add about that? I just wanted to quickly go over that since that's another marketing tool that films will do. It's a later poster, but it's just another marketing tool to use to try to get people interested in the film by showing that others have been interested in it already.
Let's see. Yeah, these things can get kind of, because this Looper poster we're looking at now, it's like I would say this is like a traditional movie poster, or advertisement poster, or maybe even like a magazine cover or something, like not cover, but magazine ad or something like that. But they come in different aspect ratios. Specifically, if you're advertising like on different websites and stuff like that, so you wouldn't be able to use that, what we're looking at now, for like something on, like when you check your emails on Yahoo, like they have like so many different dimensions and stuff like that they want. I know YouTube recently they've like updated their stuff, and they require like a certain whatever frame rate they require for their their background picture or something like that for your profile or whatever. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about advertising, like how you're going to advertise. Like if you're going to advertise for the internet way, you might want to do a couple variations. But if you're just like, oh, here's this movie poster, we'll put it in theaters, then you would only have to worry about the one. But or what's the other one? The billboards, that's a different aspect ratio as well. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and you can see in this one how the aspect ratio is wider across, so they make them bigger, they make them take up more of the space, and then they kind of just add more blank space above them in the same color tone to match. And you can see that their stars kind of match that little light behind Loop, the O in Looper, and the text matches their font style and color that they used for the title. So usually they stick to the same like color scheme and title when you're doing these kinds of posters as well. But Brian's completely right. Depends on what you are posting it on. That's why this one's in an aspect ratio that's a bit wider than the actual poster, and why these are just in an aspect ratio similar to how you would see a poster at the movie theaters, because they're going to different places. And that's something to consider no matter what kind of poster you're making. You always want to be able to make variations on it, which is why you want these, if you're creating it or if you're having someone else create it, you always want your poster to have separate layers so that you can then move them around, enlarge them or make them smaller and adjust them so you can have the same image, have the same poster, and just rearrange it when you're trying to make different aspect ratios or different kinds of posters like this. All right, moving on from that, we were talking about viral marketing and publicity stunts. This stuff comes from study.com. It's actually not in the syllabus. It's something I looked up separately. Viral marketing is a marketing method of creating buzzwords or marketing pieces that are memorable and attention-grabbing. It tries to utilize social media, videos, messaging, and other person-to-person methods to spread information about a product or service. In a film's case, the film itself getting the attention, so more are aware of it because the film is our product. The film is the thing that we are trying to sell, trying to get people to buy tickets to see it or download it or rent it or whatever it may be. So the film is the product. I want people to be aware of it so they have the choice of seeing it or not. Viral marketing attempts to create content that other users want to spread and share. If a product or service goes viral due to viral marketing, then it will spread far and wide in a very short period of time and will most likely show up on the trending now sections of different sites and apps and social medias and search engines and things like that, because a lot of people are looking into it. And that's what you want when you're trying to do a viral marketing campaign. You want it to go viral. You want it to be popular enough to where a bunch of people are talking about it and it gets spread across the internet. This stuff comes from cyberclick.net. I'm actually on their page right now. They say 4 advantages of viral marketing are that it's low cost. Since users are doing a lot of the work for you by sharing the content message or generating their own content based on your thing, it has the potential to reach a lot of users without you having to pay a bunch of ads, because people are choosing to spread it around. People are choosing to share it because they're, for what, you know, whatever you're doing, they're talking about it, they're discussing it online, and it's getting spread further and further across different sites and different discussion boards and things like that. Because of that, it has the potential to reach a lot of users, and small companies or even private individuals have the potential to go viral. So it's not just large companies that can do it. Anybody can get it done. They just have to have something that's unique and cool. And there's a lot of ifs and guesses to it. But if you can get people to start talking about whatever you're doing, whatever stunt or whatever viral marketing campaign you're doing, you can get a lot of attention on a single topic or subject or company really quickly if people want to share it around and talk about it. So you don't have to always be a huge company with a bunch of money to do it, which is good for independent filmmakers if you can get it done. Another good thing about viral marketing is it is not invasive or spammy, because again, it's the users that are deciding to share it or post it, not the company going into people's inboxes and sending them a bunch of emails saying, hey, check out our thing, check out our thing. It's, hey, check out our thing. And then everybody else picks up on it and goes, hey, check out this thing. Or, hey, they said they're going to do this competition and I'm taking part in it. Or, hey, what do you think about this? And people are spreading the word themselves. So it doesn't seem like it's, even though it originated from the company, it doesn't seem like the company is pushing it on anybody. And the company doesn't have to keep trying to reach the same users over and over again, because hopefully it's spreading around to users already. And so it's not spammy in that way. And also it can help build your brand or your film or your production company or whatever it may be. So they gave 4 examples on their site of some campaigns that worked out pretty well, or some with that. The first one is from IHOP, and they changed their, they said they were going to change their name to IHOB and change their P to a B, but no one really knew what the B was for or why. And so for the next week, everybody was just guessing what the B could be. And all the social media accounts played along with the speculation and fueled the fire. So all of IHOP's social media accounts were like, I don't know, what could it be? And so that people kept guessing and speculation continued. That way people talked about it. And then they finally revealed that it meant B for burgers. And that actually caused IHOP to receive a bunch of money, $113 million in earned media, which means it's kind of the same if they had paid $113 million advertising their burgers or their food. But they just did it with that one thing. And so everybody started talking about it.
Smart, there's nothing people hate more than not knowing things. Feeling like they're stupid, or like there's something that they don't know that is like a secret.
That's true. Or so, you know, maybe they just want to figure it out. Like people love trying to figure out a mystery.
Yeah.
And even though that one's kind of not that mysterious,
It's still fun to
it's
speculate.
still like it could stand for burgers, could stand for breakfast. You know,
It's
why are they
still
gonna
fun? Like you're giving them not only like, ooh, what could this be, but you're also giving them like, can you guess it? You know, it's a challenge. It's fun. It's fun to guess.
and it, yeah, and so that became it increased their sales in burgers. But that campaign was slightly controversial at the time because some users felt that the reveal was overhyped. So even it did successful, but people were kind of bummed out that all it was burgers because they thought it might be something new or different or something unique and not just like, oh, it's the most obvious choice. But it still did what it was supposed to do. And the overhyped part kind of came from the users. All IHOP did was say, hey, we might change our name to IHOP. And everybody went, what?
Which is
Why?
also smart because that way.
And kind of overhyped it themselves. So in the end, it wasn't really IHOP saying like, although they did play along. So I mean, there's two sides to this, but it did what it was set out to do, and it increased their burger sales and got more people talking about IHOP.
The best thing you can do, like that is also very, very smart because if you think about it, they can't get any real backlash for, oh, you made it seem something bigger than it was, or oh, you misleaded, because technically they just left them to their own devices. They just left them to, oh, draw your own conclusions, which means you create the hype, you create the curiosity, but you're not like, it's not your fault if people don't interpret it the way that it was supposed to be.
Yeah. So one good thing and one bad thing about speculation is that people will start wanting to talk about it to figure it out, but they'll also start to dig in so much to things that they start over expanding what it could be.
And more often than not, let's be real, what people imagine it to be ends up being more interesting than what it actually ends up being. More often than not, that's the case.
Yeah. And so, people could have been looking back from IHOP's past tweets and being like, oh, well, this and that, and this means that clue, and that means that. So that must mean that B means this. They're coming out with a new product. They're coming out with a new menu. And then it's like, oh, it's just burgers. It's already on their menu.
Right? Because that'd be ridiculous.
No, but it was just a single tweet. So that's the whole thing. Like all they said was, hey, we might change our name from this to that.
Which doesn't make any sense because they're the International House of Pancakes. They're not the International House of Burgers. For goodness sake.
Honey, what? That's what the whole thing was.
I know, but their burgers aren't even that good.
Hey, I'm not talking about that. That's a company. Either way, they set out what they did to do, and they increased their burger sales, and they got people talking about it. And all they did was make a fake suggestion that they're going to change their name.
They got good burgers, though. For real.
No, I mean, I'm not saying they're bad. Like that's not it. I'm just saying that they're not known for that. They've been known for years for their pancakes, and the pancakes, in my opinion, are awesome.
Right, but the whole point was, hey guys, we also have burgers. We're not just a breakfast place.
Yeah.
So that increased the awareness that they have that. Some people didn't even know. And then also, if they really wanted to, they could try to say like, we want to be known for our burgers now. So we're going to start making more of them or something. We're going to make different variety.
And that's the thing. I feel like unless you're shifting 180 completely, it's never smart to like, oh, we're going to be known for this now, so don't expect this. Like,
it was a joke.
No, I know. I'm just saying from a business standpoint, you always want to add, never remove, unless it's like something that you're truly.
Yeah. I mean, they were never really going to change the name. That's why it's a lowercase b, and that's why it's just something. But it got people to speculate about what it is.
Like as film, for example.
And honestly, they might not have even with that. I don't even think they were actually trying for it to get as popular as it did.
Yeah,
honestly,
I'm looking at it from a film perspective in the sense of if you want to move your production company to focus on one genre and specific right now, and not focus on that other genre as much, you don't necessarily have to say like, we're never doing this again, or forget that we used to be known for. You can still shift being like, this is our focus now, without completely like removing the possibility of it ever being something else.
Yeah, and to be completely honest, if you were trying to do the same thing that IHOP did as an independent film crew or company that nobody really knows, nobody's gonna care if you're changing from something to something else because they don't even know who you are. Only reason this worked for IHOP was because it's a big known, well-known brand name. But that doesn't mean that there's not something to learn. It's that one thing if popular and gets people intrigued enough, can take off and go across the internet and help with sales of tickets and all that, if you can get the right thing on there. So the thing is called Dumb Ways to Die. In 2012, Australia's metro trains wanted to find a way to encourage people to act safely around trains. Instead of going the traditional route of scary and off-putting ads, they decided to add levity to Metro Train's ads, delivering the instant hit Dumb Ways to Die. It's a bunch of little cartoons that have stupid ways that they're getting killed. And then at the end, there's like 3 different ways that they get killed by trains. And they're like, that's probably the dumbest way you could die, doing that. And that took off because it was like a different, interesting, unique ad for that kind of company.
It's unique, it catches people's eyes. And I don't know about you, this is just speaking for me personally, but if I feel like an ad or any kind of promotional material is overly preachy or overly like, hey, you should do this, I immediately get a little like, no, like kind of like, leave me alone, like turned off by it. So when it's done in like a really smart way, it also, plus people are used to that. People are used to the old, like something common was like, don't do this because this will happen. And the black and white colors and the accidents. So how can we do it in a new way that people won't be like, oh, that's just another thing and ignore it, a way that will actually draw people's attention. And we'll make it fun too, because when you make something engaging, people tend to pay more attention to it.
And so they made this little like cartoon of these little things, whatever they're supposed to be. I don't know, like vegetables or something. But they get
I think they're just supposed to be little blobby things.
maybe. But they get cut and stuff and they like kill themselves. Well, not kill themselves, but they
Yeah.
accidentally die or get maimed or whatever because of the things they're doing. And so it's a little cute but funny thing that people could share around and spread and be like, hey, look at this, it's interesting. And it's completely different from what you would see from these kinds of safety videos
And they made a
that you
little
normally see.
blob so it's not gruesome, so it's not, scary, especially because that way you can teach little kids or teenagers or people that are younger too, hey, this is safety on trains, without it being like overly gruesome.
Video was shared worldwide and received over 60 million in media impressions. And most importantly, the video's message caused people to be more aware of safety issues around trains, resulting in 20% reduction in all rail-related accidents. So they did what they set out to do. And they did it in a different, unique way, which is why it got spread around so much. Oreo. Some of the best viral content comes from seizing the moment. Perhaps the most famous example of this is Oreo's dunk in the dark tweet during the 2013 Super Bowl. I read up a little more on this. It was apparently there was like a huge blackout that went around and like a bunch of people lost power. And so right at that moment, Oreo decided to tweet out this with this little picture where the Oreo's lighting up the dark and you can still dunk in the dark. So they're basically saying
quick.
you can still eat an Oreo even if you are
I feel like that
without
could
power.
backfire in today's world.
That's quick.
It
though.
could, but I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, so they tweeted that really quickly. So sometimes viral tweets from companies just go viral because they say something quippy
Or lighthearted
really
in
quickly,
a moment where people are
in
like,
a
oh
moment.
man, and then it's like, ah.
and then and I think that increased their sales of Oreos or whatever because people were like, sure, whatever. You know what I mean? I don't have power, I'll eat some Oreos. It's just because it's
I mean,
spreading
you can dunk in
around
the
and it's
dark,
something you
but
want
in
to
that
eat, and
gross
then there you go.
milk, that's probably going bad because you don't have electricity.
Ah, see, they don't talk about that. That's why there's no milk in here. It's just the Oreo. Ah, there it is, the ice bucket challenge. Told you that thing was everywhere. A few years ago, the ALS Association has launched the ice bucket challenge to raise awareness of the condition and funds for medical research.
Oh, it was for
The
ALS.
challenge-
I knew it was Century.
The challenge was to film yourself pouring a bucket of ice water over your head and then nominate 3 other people to follow suit.
Now here's my question.
Millions of people around the world participated, including celebrities like Oprah, Bill Gates, and Donatella Versace.
Versace.
Versace. I don't know.
Goodness gracious.
I don't know, Nick. The challenge was a great success, receiving over $115 million in donations. So this thing that maybe people weren't even really aware of, this is, even if they're aware of the disease, maybe not the association that's trying to help people with that or try to cure it, or I don't know actually what they're trying to do, but this challenge that they reached doesn't really have anything to do with the thing. It's just something interesting and cool for people to share and spread around, some kind of challenge. And then of course nominating 3 others when you're doing it, and then it's for charity, it just makes people more likely to feel inclined to do it. And that's part of the reason why it got spread around so much, as well as it just being kind of fun to do and a challenge to take on. Oh, I can do that.
But here's my question, right? At what point, like, is it considered a failure if your challenge becomes so big that people forget why it's even being done? Because I saw people just doing it because it was a trend, and I knew it had to do with some charity, but I caught it like later. And some celebrities are still doing it for the charity, but then random people started doing it, and it kind of got lost, like what it was even for.
Well, again, it raised $115 million for their donate and for their charity. So
No, that's
it
wonderful.
did what it set out to do. And then it got so popular that it lost its meaning. No, because you can still look up how did this start.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's
that's
true.
where you can find it out. And plus you can find other people doing it if you wanted to. And then one of them is bound to
You can
mention
look
it.
up what is the Ice Bucket Challenge, and it can tell you, oh, it's for
How did this start? What
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it?
that's a good
Or, you hear it in one of the things you're watching if you're just going through watching people pour buckets of ice on their head,
Yeah,
ice
so-
water. So yeah, those are the 4 that they gave out. Like Priscilla was saying, possible cons to viral marketing are if your message is received negatively and it goes viral, people complaining about the marketing attempt. So that could be like Priscilla was saying with the Oreo thing, like that could have gone wrong. It could have been people like, oh, we don't have power, we're suffering here, and you're gonna try to do a marketing stunt. That happens a lot with companies when they're trying to do these viral marketing.
An example that is very common, I'm gonna give it, not trying to be like overly controversial, but this is a comparison. One of the most famous ads of all time was the Give the World a Coke ad in, I think, 1970.
That's different than viral stuff.
I know,
That's
but
different.
I'm giving, listen, let me finish. So basically it was talking about how, oh, uniting, we're all one with the Coke, blah, blah, blah. I feel like during, I don't remember which year, but the Super Bowl, the Pepsi ad, that's what they were trying to do.
Right, but that's not the same kind of marketing.
No, I know,
That's
but they were trying to like
advertising stuff.
get people
This is a commercial.
Get people to do little viral challenges and get people to, hey, let's sit around and do this. What do you think? And they got, as a marketing tactic, they got not Kylie, the other Jenner, the supermodel, Kendall Jenner to do it because, oh, she is popular. She will bring more people to do it. And that really didn't work, like really bad. So I feel like you also have to, when creating a viral trend, you really have to read the room and read the moment, because the reason that didn't work was because of all the animosity at the time and the social situation. So that's another thing you really have to consider when trying to create a viral moment is this appropriate for the time? What is the acceptance of humor in this area or in this demographic? Like the Oreo one, they were like, oh, it's for little kids for the most part. Little kids are the ones mostly eating cookies. So I feel like this is maybe a way for parents to be like, oh yeah, maybe I can use this.
I don't know if that's true. I've never
Well,
seen
I could be wrong, but like in my mind, my perspective, if I saw a tweet like that and I had kids.
No, I'm talking about like I don't think they market to kids, but I feel like they market to everybody.
I know, but most of the marketing is for families and kids and stuff because that sells more at the end of the day. It's, bigger marketing.
Possibly. Maybe you're right.
But what I'm saying is, if I were a parent and I saw that tweet, I would think, okay, that's actually a fun idea. Like it's a blackout. We can play a game with the kids, and it's like, okay, let's get the Oreos and like try to dunk in the dark, or have cookies in the dark and make it fun. And like that could be a smart thing to distract your children, or not have them freak out and worry about the blackout.
I
Like, that's where
mean,
my
I think the
mind
Oreo thing was just you can still eat a snack in the dark.
No, I know, but I'm talking about layers here. There are layers to it. When people see an ad, it triggers different things in different people, right? Different thoughts, different assumptions. So
Right, and that's another possible con, is that you never know how people are going to take something.
Yeah.
Because again, this, power out, no problem. You can still have a cookie in the dark. If people are out of power for like 8 weeks, they might start getting pissed off at this ad because, they're just trying to take advantage of the fact that we have this to do a marketing stunt.
weeks if you do it more than 2 days.
There's companies that try to do the same, like similar things when there's like natural disasters,
Mhm.
and it usually doesn't plan out. Okay, it'd be like if Oreo, which they didn't, I don't believe do, but there was like Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane something else, and they were like, send them cookies, send them Oreos, that'll make them feel better. And, they lost their homes, they lost their cars, they lost their
Yeah, that
jobs.
would not-
That kind of thing has been done by companies. I don't know which ones, but that kind of stuff does get done because they're trying to capture the moment like Oreo did in the Super Bowl moment. But again, you have to really think hard about how people might take it, and if it is something that can be taken wrong, because if it is going to be taken wrong and received negatively, it can damage the brand, the filmmaker, for us as filmmakers, your production company, and can make other companies and other distributors and stuff not want to associate with you because everybody's pissed off at you.
In my opinion, I feel like a good way of going about it would be after an event, instead of doing it while the thing is happening. Because in that moment, people's stresses are high, people are, thinking about stuff. If you do it later, it can be something that unites people, like, oh, remember when that happened? Now we can laugh about it. It's not too soon.
It depends on what it is, because the Super Bowl thing, nobody would care if they did it 4 weeks later.
No, I know, but like, let's say we don't know when this blackout was, right? It
was during the Super Bowl.
It was during the Super Bowl, because these ads take time to develop. And
no, they did that immediately after this went during the Super Bowl.
I
Which is
believe
why
it.
it was so popular. It was something like, I think it was something to do with during the 2013 Super Bowl, a lot of houses went out of power, so they couldn't watch the Super Bowl, which was one of the things. And then Oreo's like, hey, you can still have a snack.
That's
And that
easy
got
to do.
popular because they just captured that moment so well.
Gotcha.
So quickly too. They came up with that really quickly and did it like pretty much right after it was happening.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
So sometimes it is good to try to seize the moment, but I would say for that kind of stuff, that's more for bigger companies that people are already aware of. If you're trying to seize the moment as a small independent production company, you could. I would just think it would be harder.
You got
to
to
do.
know your audience too. You really got to know your audience, because not everything will resonate. Just because one company did, even if it's another production company, just because one production company did a campaign and this worked for them, doesn't always mean it will translate for your film, your genre, your location.
Yeah. So another con, or a possible con, for viral marketing is that the results of viral marketing are kind of hard to measure. You can't really tell how well did this work? Was it worth the time and effort I put in to try to pull off this publicity stunt or put together this whatever I tried to do to get a viral marketing campaign going and spread the word? Oh yeah, go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, I think it's a good move by them because it's really personal. Like, they're like, man, this big company, like they're huge, like they're here right now. It's really a good look. It's real personal. Like, are they in here? Sort of, just because they're there at the venue. It's like, even though I'm sure the profit is really nothing to them, but it's the statement that they're making, which is really good marketing, how they do it.
Yeah,
I think.
definitely capturing those moments and everything is
I
definitely
mean, that's
the
why.
good, and especially because they went about it in the way that's not mocking or anything. It's just saying, hey,
Yeah.
you know, you can still have a treat.
And that's why companies
Mhm.
can afford to take these chances, because either the
Well, they can.
no, I'm saying they can is what I said. Because either the reception will be somewhat positive and get some money back, or it might be super successful and they might make a crap ton of money.
I would
And if it
say,
is a loss, it's not gonna dent them that
I would say for film and TV, viral marketing, even if it's negative, can sometimes still be good because it can sometimes sell tickets for the hate.
but it depends
But
on the hate.
it depends, yeah, because
Yeah.
sometimes it'll just generate hate that people don't want to go see your movie and they think you're a piece of crap or whatever because you said something you thought might be funny or witty, and then it ended up being like something people
it's
took
just-
personally or didn't like.
If it's like something
Right.
silly, like
Yeah.
drama behind the scenes, or oh, this character, is he good? Is he bad? Or like, oh, making fun of the character, something like that. I've seen movies do that, production companies do that, like, oh, let's like a viral thing where they take a certain character and they play around with the character to make people either hate them, and then it's like, well, you want to watch the movie to get him get I remember one example of this. This isn't like a film, but so Jake Paul was very hated for a long time as like this YouTuber. He was kind of douchey. Some would argue he still is, I don't know enough. But basically he was advertising his boxing match. And people were like, dude, this guy's a douche. I hate him. I'd love to watch him get punched in the face. So he was like leaning into that, like, yeah, you guys want to watch me fight? Like, if I win, I win, and that's awesome. If I lose, you guys get to watch me get punched in the face.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, obviously that's something different because it's a fight. So it's like you could lose, and I want to see you lose.
But yeah, I'm just giving an
but-
example of like how you can use certain, like not super.
How you can kind of go with the flow to
Yeah.
make it work if something is going against you, if you can capitalize on it, which is something that, you know, it's kind of the taking quick thinking and taking control of the moment and going with it to capitalize on it and get extra revenue for it, which again is something that you kind of already have to have as this independent filmmaker, or you're coming out with an independent film. You already have to have some kind of viral marketing thing going on for that to work. But if it's going negatively,
Oh,
you don't always have to take back everything you said, depending on what it is and why it's going negatively and how negative it is.
sometimes films will do this viral thing where they'll have like a specific scene in a film, and they'll be like, hey guys, either recreating it, like let's say it's a family film and it's talking about road trips, right? And they'll have, hey, post pictures of your family road trip, your crazy family road trips, you know? It's a movie about crazy family road trips and that kind of thing. So yeah, if you can tailor it to your film and make it personal and make it the audience have a connection with it, I feel like that's a really good idea too.
Right, and that comes to another possible con of viral marketing is the unpredictability of whether anyone will want to share the content or not. Even if you think it's something that people will like and want to share, doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And big companies will do this sometimes where they spend a lot of time and effort on certain challenges or posts or whatever, and then it goes nowhere. Same thing happens with small companies and small businesses. So you might end up spending more time than you'd like on something that goes nowhere, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth it, especially if you end up getting a successful one, then it's definitely worth all that time that you put in. And so the chances of it happening or not, most of the time, most companies think that it is worth it. It's worth it as one of the marketing strategies to try to get a viral marketing campaign going. And so putting effort into that to get something that somebody wants to share, to spread the word really quickly online, is one avenue that a lot of companies and a lot of people and filmmakers will take, even if it doesn't pan out, because the chances of it panning out would far outweigh the chances of it not. Or not the chances, but if it did work out, that would far outweigh the chances that it won't. So
Yeah.
that ratio is still worth it to most people and companies. You want to cater it to something your target audience can enjoy. So you always want to be thinking about your audience, you know, as a film, especially, what does your audience want? What do they like? What is their age? What, you know, if they're an older audience, they might remember certain shows or TV shows or movies or comments or public figures or whatever. And you might be able to capitalize on nostalgia by saying, hey, something, something. And then everybody's like, oh yeah, like Priscilla said, oh yeah, I do remember that. That is something that a film can do to kind of bring people into their film. Our film is kind of like this one. And then everyone's, oh yeah, I remember that. If you have an older audience that liked that thing back in the day. So you want to make sure whoever your target audience is, you're making it something that's attractive to them. From there, it can begin to spread, but starting with the target audience is always a good way to try to generate buzz, so the awareness can exponentially increase. If you can get your target audience to start spreading the word, they'll spread it to, let's say 1, 2, 3, 5 friends, whatever, and those friends spread it and spread it farther. It can spread really quickly in a short amount of time that it wouldn't otherwise have done if you didn't get your target audience to initially start spreading the news about it. So you have to think about them, especially as an independent thing. This stuff comes from Watch Mojo. It's letter C in the syllabus. It's the video Top 10 Innovative Movie Marketing Campaigns. All right, so Toy Story 3, they decided that their marketing, they were going to market to people who had watched Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2, people who grew up with it specifically. So that was their target audience, their target market for who they were going to market it to. And so it was college students by the time that the movie would come out. The people who grew up with it were probably in college or around college age. Also, it had to do with the film itself because it is the kid going off to college. And so what is he going to do with all of his toys from Toy Story 1 and 2? And so it played into the movie, and it also played into who their target audience was. So what they did was they hung flyers all over college campuses and more that were hiring for Pizza Planet drivers.
Oh, that is so cute.
Now hiring drivers. You can see the Pizza Planet truck that you see in every single Pixar film. I believe it's almost in every single one. Become a part of the Pizza Planet team now. Learn about benefits, pay, and much more. Buzzkillers. If you have no idea what Toy Story is, you'd probably think this is a real job.
It looks like a real poster. It looks like a real flyer, like a real job flyer.
Yeah, and so it has those little I don't know what you call it, like pull it off, the little tiny stubs that you pull off for the number. But what that thing was a URL with an info page about the screening. And so if people took it and they looked it up, it would go to that website, and then they would see about Toy Story 3 screening and when it's coming out near them. It was specifically catered to each college because they were screening at different colleges or around the area in different theaters. So when they went to that site, it was specifically about their college or their local movie theater and their screening times for the movie. They also made a commercial for the stuffed animal bear in the movie.
The evil one?
Hey, people didn't see it.
Oh, come on. If you haven't seen Toy Story 3 by now, like you're either
But they made it with lower quality audio and visuals and set it up to imitate a commercial of the 90s so that it could, again, draw on that nostalgia. So the commercial is kind of their way for marketing, and the pizza flyers were their way to like do the publicity stunt, their viral marketing campaign. And it worked. People spread it all around talking about it and how cool and different it was just to market for a film. Oh, did you guys see this thing? It was so cool. I saw this on my campus, blah, blah, blah. And so then it started spreading around, and especially because the college students were talking to each other about it once they figured out what it was. And who knows how long it took for the first one to figure out that it was not a real job. So,
Yeah, I was
but
gonna-
that's a.
that would suck if people didn't know, but I feel like people.
I don't have a car. I don't want to be Pete's driver.
Not in that car either.
Yeah, that ugly clunker. But yeah, so that was their way of doing it
90s too. It looked very,
with the car.
yeah.
Oh yeah, very ugly like truck thing. All right, Inception. If you went to its website, all it had was a spinning top on the website for months before there was anything. So it was just that spinning top, obviously that's integral to the movie. And so people were constantly checking back there to see if anything new popped up, like very movie enthusiasts and stuff always check that stuff out.
See, now that's the kind of movie that it doesn't matter how old it is, I'm never gonna spoil. Toy Story, whatever, with that hookup.
But the spinning top is integral to the movie and one of the concepts of what the movie is about. And so, on their website, all they had was that for months until there was access to a mind crime online game, it looks like an old, ugly Grand Theft Auto type game that visitors could play. And if solved, they were granted access to the movie's poster. So it was like, play this game, and nobody knew why, but they started playing it until they beat it. And once they solved the thing, whatever the puzzle was, or I don't know, whatever the objective of the game was, they would be able to get access to the movie's poster as a reward. And so then they could see the actual film poster. They also did a giveaway with QR codes on free t-shirts. So they had QR codes on these t-shirts that they gave out. And if you scan the QR code, it would send the user to an instruction manual for the briefcase that's used in the film to build the dreams. That briefcase they used to build the dream worlds. And it was just the instruction manual to this fake device. So they didn't really give out like a ton of information about the actual film itself. They just got people intrigued about it because that kind of has to do with the film. When you're watching it, you're trying to figure out what's going on. And there's multiple layers to it. And so they did that same thing with their marketing. Obviously, the game was very popular and people posted around the poster. If they had just come out with their poster, it wouldn't have been as popular because it's just another movie poster. But because you had to earn it, because you had to do all these things to get to it, it became popular. And also, it was a Christopher Nolan film, so people were already interested in seeing what they could about it. The QR codes on the t-shirts, if people actually wore those out and people scanned them, other people, then obviously they would learn more about the film, because I'm sure the word Inception was there somewhere when they had that instruction manual. Now, Chronicle was a smaller film, smaller budgeted film. I think it was a few million, but it was smaller than what most big budget films are made for. And it was about I think it was like a teenager or a young adult that got superpowers and was able to fly and stuff like that. So one of the big things is that he can fly in the movie. What they did was they created human-shaped remote-controlled planes, and then they flew those over New York. And so they made them look like this. They started flying them around, and some New Yorkers actually got spooked and thought there were people flying around New York because
Oh my gosh.
it looks kind of like that. I believe they would have had to get the like permit or something for that, because I don't think you can just do that. Maybe when they came out they could, I don't know. So don't just try to do that on your own. I'm pretty sure they got permission, but they were able to fly those around, and that spread the news of the movie. And it doesn't even have anything about the movie on it. It was just people sighting these things that look kind of like people flying in the sky.
Yeah.
And taking photos and sharing it on social media, like, what is this? There's somebody in the air. And then people look it up and they find out it's about Chronicle. There's another movie called Cloverfield. It came out with a teaser, but didn't show the name of the film in the first teaser. They only showed the date of the release, which made people speculate on what it was for and what movie it might be. And so they ended up, again, speculation is very good for viral marketing because you're getting people to talk about it. You're getting people to have opinions on what it could be and trying to solve some kind of puzzle. So you'll see a lot of this type of viral marketing stuff. The ones that are successful are things that get people to think about what it could be or think about what it is, or are just very unique, like this Chronicle thing. But for Cloverfield, they showed a little teaser of like some, I think it was like a monster or something, and it tore off the Lady Liberty's head, threw it over by the camera, and they didn't really say anything else about the film. It was just, this is the date this thing's going to be released, which got a lot of people trying to figure out what it was. And that actually gave it more, had people talking about it more than if they had said their name. A lot of films would be like, no, I have to give up my name, otherwise nobody will know who I am. But they did, and it worked for them. Doesn't mean it'll work for everybody though. Viral marketing stunts, you have to usually do something unique. You can't do the same thing that's already been done, or it's just a copycat thing and people don't really care as much, usually. They also had MySpace pages that were created for every character in the film. So they made one for each character to make them seem more real and like actual people that were involved in this kind of situation that happens in Cloverfield. The Simpsons movie, when it came out, they had a deal with 7-Elevens. Several 7-Elevens around the nation turned into Quickie Marts, which are the stores in The Simpsons. They also had fictionalized branded items in the store that you could buy with little quotes and stuff that the guy would say in the show when you're like in the shop trying to buy stuff. And he's like, oh, you know, you want to buy this, you want to buy that. These things won't be gone until you buy them. And it's these little like fake things. They also had like fake soda and cereal. I'm pretty sure, you know, those are the brands you can find in the show. So that got people interested in talking more about the film, because now their 7-Eleven all of a sudden became a Quickie Mart. Obviously, you know, that's a big budget thing. You can't just do that, but it's just showing the unique and different thing that they did to get people interested in the film. The movie Ex Machina they created a Tinder profile made for the android character, because that movie's about that guy like having feelings or falling in love with the android, because it's very lifelike, it's very human-like, and it seems like it is real and alive. And so they made a Tinder profile for that to connect with specific users and then converse with them. And then at the end of conversing with them, they provide a link to her username that brought users to the movie's Instagram handle. And so if people thought they were talking to a real person and they send a link, they'd go to that link and then they're at a movie Instagram and they see, oh, this is for that upcoming movie. That got popular and spread around, of course, because it was something different and interesting at the time, because I believe it was an AI talking to them. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe it was an AI that was just having a general conversation with you until it decided to give you the link. This next stuff comes from screencrush.com. It's letter E in the syllabus. Best viral movie marketing. Ant-Man. So what Ant-Man did was it set up tiny billboards for its advertising around certain cities to help promote the film. Instead of doing the general thing of doing big billboards, they did these little tiny ant-sized ones, basically. I mean, it's not as small as an ant, but it's definitely very tiny. And they would be all around the city, and people started taking pictures of them and showing them like, oh, I found one. It was like a kind of like a treasure hunt of how many can we find.
That is
for
so
some people.
Cool. Like some of these are just so smart and clever and cute.
And unique. And yeah, that is why they're getting spread around, because you can see why. You can be like, oh wow, it's really cool. I can see why it got spread around so far. It's because it's very different.
Plus it engages people so much because they're like, oh, they're spread around the city. How many can you find? You know?
Yeah, and so they'd be these little tiny sign billboards, or they'd be these little like bus stop type things, but they were like tiny versions. I'm surprised they didn't get crushed. Some of them. Someone sue them for stepping on it.
Crap.
the movie Smile, which is a horror movie, they planted paid smilers that were grinning from ear to ear in public places like Major League Baseball games, behind weathermen during a live take, and more. You can see the live weathermen up here on the top right, and then at the baseball games, and I believe it's baseball games on the bottom. So everybody just saw these creepy weirdos with the shirts that said Smile, probably didn't even know it was a movie, and just saw these people smiling like freaks. And then it got spread around. They're in bright yellow, makes them stand apart, and then they're just smiling like weirdos, which plays into the movie because it's actually, I don't really know. I believe it's about like killers that smile the whole time or something like that, or do they just do horrific things while smiling because they enjoy it? I'm not exactly sure, but it plays into what the movie is about. And so they planted them all over because there'd just be people that would see it from afar or up close and be like, holy crap, are you guys seeing this? And spread it on social media. And so their viral marketing campaign worked like that until people figured out that it was for the movie, or just like, oh, wow, this is interesting. This is a very different kind of advertising. I've never seen it before. Very unique. Good job, whoever came out with it. This next stuff comes from 5wpr.com. Is letter H in the syllabus. For publicity stunts or PR stunts, they are large and coordinated professional or amateur public relations events that are intended to raise awareness about a film. Publicity stunts can be cheap or expensive, depending on what you are trying to do. We saw that through some of these examples. Stuff like Smile, that wouldn't be that expensive to hire a few actors, go to a few public places and just do whatever, as long as it's not illegal stuff, obviously. But just having them do something that's unique and different, and or something that'll garner attention without being a disruption, that wouldn't be that expensive. Whereas something like changing 7-Elevens to Quickie Marts, obviously that would have to be some kind of deal with 7-Eleven itself, which would make it more expensive. So publicity stunts, they can be cheap or expensive depending on what you are trying to do. If you can get people talking online about your upcoming film, you can get your film's awareness up exponentially faster than what you could do through other means. If it's possible that your viral marketing campaign is successful and it goes viral, you're going to have way more awareness and way more recognition than you would any other means of advertising or marketing. Being creative and finding something unique and cool or interesting that people want to further discuss is the key. There are a few things to consider before launching a publicity stunt or viral marketing campaign. First, figure out what the objective of the stunt is. Is it for awareness? Is it for ticket sales? Is it for followers? Or what is it for? It could be a mix of these, but you should focus on one main objective. Like in some of the examples we saw, you could link someone back to a ticket or screening times page, like Toy Story did. Toy Story had the link that sent them directly to the screenings around their area. Or you could do a link to your social media account if you want people to follow you online and gain a bigger audience, your newsletter, or something else. Figure out what your main objective is, and then you can put that into the marketing campaign. And then if it's successful, everybody will be going to wherever you're sending them. You should have a mitigation plan in case things don't go as planned. So that's if things start going bad, if things start going wrong and people are negative about it, what is your alternate plan, or what is your plan to lessen the blow of the negativity? You should have one of those just in case. PR stunts can be a fast way to increase interest, but they can also be a fast way to cause tremendous damage to a brand's reputation when done wrong. For a successful publicity stunt, you need community involvement. You also want to figure out a number goal for people you want to sign up, buy a ticket, or etc. So you have a measurable goal about the success or failure of the PR stunt. So that way you're saying, oh, I want to sell tickets to 1,000 people, and you're doing this publicity stunt for that. If you get 1,000 people to buy tickets, you can say that that publicity stunt was successful. If you don't, then you can say, oh, I failed my goal, and you'll be able to measure it better than you would if you just throw it out there without any measurable goal at all. You also want your PR stunt to be memorable. It also needs to be bold, doing something fun or unique and different. To create a PR stunt, number one, identify the goal. Make it something measurable. Spread online doesn't have measurability. Reaching 1,000 people, now that's something that's measurable. So make it measurable, figure out what the goal is first. Number two, there's no set time length for PR stunts. Some last an hour, others days, weeks, months, etc. It is normally best to set a deadline for the stunt, depending on what it is. So for a competition or for a contest, not a contest, what is it called? What ALS did.
Challenge?
For a challenge. For something like a challenge, you kind of want to set a end date so that eventually people will feel like they need to do it or not.
Oh yeah, that's really important, especially when it's for like your film has a specific date, your charity donation has a specific date. That's very important.
Yeah, and so it's like, hey guys, do this by 3 months from now, do this by a month from now, do this by then. That way, the quicker, the closer it gets to that end date, if people are kind of on the sidelines of whether they should do it or not, they'll
Sense
feel
of
more,
urgency, excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that way they'll feel more inclined to do it because, like Priscilla just said, they'll feel like there's a sense of urgency there, like, oh, I need to get this done before that date, and ooh, this is exciting, I have to get this done really quickly because I wanted to take part, but I didn't have time. And they'll make time for it if there's a date that it ends. So depending on what you're doing, set a deadline for it. Otherwise, some things don't really need an end date. Obviously, for something like hiring actors, like Smile did, you're going to know when you're not going to be paying them anymore and when you're not going to be sending people to public events, and that'll be your end date. So again, depending on what you're doing, just figure out what the schedule is for that thing and when it's going to end. You also want to determine the best medium for the stunt. Is it the newspaper, commercials, billboards, live in person, at some kind of event, on social media, etc. For example, Ex Machina chose a fairly new at the time dating app. When it came out, Tinder was, I don't know how old, but it wasn't that. It was fairly new when it came out. So them choosing to do it through that was on purpose so they could gain that audience that is on this new thing. So they felt that was the best way to illustrate their idea in their film and go about that viral marketing stunt by doing it on that app. So figure out what your best way of doing it is. What is the best medium for you to utilize your stunt?
Yeah, we always talk about we have to personalize it to you, to your audience, to your personality, to your marketing. Otherwise, it won't be as effective.
And it won't be unique. And
Yeah,
the main
that's
thing
it.
about viral marketing is that it's unique and different, and it is unique to your thing, your film, your style.
Yeah, because if it's just another generic thing, it won't have as much of an impact.
So you're like, oh, jump into a pool with ice. Nobody's going to want to do that because it's basically the same thing as the ice bucket challenge. And they'll just think you're ripping that idea off. So be creative and think of something unique if you're trying to do viral marketing. the creator's role should act as a leader and the face of the stunt while the stunt is active. This gets more people engaged. And again, that depends on what it is. But sometimes you might have the actor as the face of the stunt. If you were doing a Joker movie and you wanted people to put on Joker makeup and go around town, that's a challenge, or that's something you're just trying to get people to do. Ooh, take pictures with people in clown makeup. Then Joker, whoever's playing the Joker would be the face of that campaign. If you're doing something like Smile, you might have one of your actors do that, or you might just have the smile, the actual smile itself, that expression being the face of the campaign, just like it is on their poster. It's basically just a smile, I think. So whatever it is, you usually are going to have a face for a PR campaign. Everyone knows, Subway had that guy that lost a bunch of weight. He was that face of that campaign for the longest time. And so, you're always going to have somebody associated with it. It might be you as the creator or whoever came up with the publicity stunt. But for a film, it's usually going to be one of the characters or one of the actors. This next stuff comes from thethings.com. It's letter I in the syllabus. Independence Day created a fake 30-minute news broadcast that soon gets interrupted by an alien invasion that uses footage from the film. The idea actually caused panic in some of the audiences because they thought that we were being attacked by aliens. So, but it did what it set out to do. It got everybody to talk about it, pay attention to it. And obviously the aliens had to do with that movie, Independence Day. So there's a movie called Office Space, which trapped a person in a cubicle for a week where they had to take calls and file reports. Obviously they were a paid person, but they marketed it as them trapping somebody in there and not being able to get them out, and that person wanting to leave, as a joke of being stuck in an office for your job. And I think that's what the movie's about. The day in and day out of doing the same thing in an office day after day. Getting old and being soul crushing. I think that really is what the movie's about. But yeah, so they did that for their marketing stunt. For one that went wrong, there was this movie called Cool World, which was a mixture of animation with live action. What they did was they put a giant 40-foot tall model of the film's animated character on the D of the Hollywood sign. A lot of people didn't like it because it was messing with a landmark. And so they actually were upset by it and didn't want to see the film because of it. So it actually backfired on what they were trying to do.
I feel like you don't mess with landmarks. I know that it's like cool to make it different. Like I know that I've heard of certain campaigns where they would get the is it the Empire State Building? Where they'd like put lights on it and advertise different things. But I feel like someplace like New York is used to having ads all the time. Like that's part of their thing. It's different than like another place, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously they had to get in contact with the authorities and whoever else to be able to do this, but it just didn't go the way they had wanted it to. It didn't go the way they planned. They thought it'd be a cool thing to do and get attention, like, oh, hey, there's something new on the Hollywood sign. Nope. People didn't like it.
It doesn't mix with the landscape at all. It's like, a big thumb.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very different too. So, which I guess is what they were trying to do to make it set apart, but it just didn't work. So there was the Blair Witch Project. When they were coming out, their viral marketing thing was to basically pretend that everything that happened in the movie was real. It's a found footage film, and so they were acting like these are real people. They all went missing, or they haven't been heard from, or whatever. And
I remember there was a similar campaign to that backfired too. Holy crap! Is it that one, or am I thinking of something else?
the Blair Witch Project did really good with this campaign. So it probably wasn't that.
Oh no, yeah. I remember
They created social media accounts for all the people, and they made it seem like they were real, and they were having discussions and stuff. I think they basically made them a few months in advance, or I don't remember
there was
exactly,
an
but I
issue
remember.
with the Blair Witch Project though, where people actually did think it was real. And
Yeah, because all of the marketing was saying it was.
well, yeah, but there was like a time where it did get some backlash when they found out it wasn't, because people were actually searching and were worried about it. But I feel like it was just one of those rare moments where at first or for a second people got upset and like what the heck, but then they were like, actually that's really smart, and moved on, maybe.
Yeah, and you can see like that's not really that expensive to do. It matches their film. They have found footage film, so they tried to say, like, oh, all this stuff actually happened. All they did was create some social media accounts and add some like back and forth between the characters that they said, oh no, these are real people. And yeah, I mean, it just went from there. So people thought that this was a real thing, and then they watched the movie and then found out, oh no, it's not real. So but that's a way you can also do one that is very cheap that still latches on. Again, the main thing is just to be unique and different, and also unique to your film or your company. As an independent filmmaker, you're not going to have the ability to do a lot of the kinds of ideas that big budget films can do for their publicity stunts, like making a sign on Hollywood, or adding a really large caricature of your character on a Hollywood sign, or changing 7-Elevens and doing all this other stuff. But with some creativity and resourcefulness, independent filmmakers can utilize PR stunts to launch a viral marketing campaign to help raise awareness of their film and hopefully sell some tickets and grow their fan base. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything to add about viral marketing or publicity stunts? All right. But yeah, again, I'm just going to mention again, this is, if you do decide to try to do viral marketing, just pay attention to, could this backfire? And if so, how can I mitigate the situation? But also, just because you're going to do a publicity stunt or try to do a viral marketing campaign, you should also pursue other avenues of marketing at the same time. Social media, advertising, and all the other kinds of marketing that we've been learning about this semester, plus more that we'll learn about later. Just utilize a mixture of different marketing techniques. Do a marketing mix. That's what it means when they say that, is different marketing strategies at the same time. Try to maximize how many people are seeing this and how much coverage you're getting in all sorts of different avenues. Also, I'll say one more thing. Viral marketing, if you're trying to do it, remember your audience, because again, if you have a really older audience that isn't really online a lot, then you don't really want to try to launch a viral marketing campaign through social media. It just doesn't make sense. So always be aware of who your audience is, or what they like, or what kind of social media are they on, or do they like challenges, or do they do this and do that. You can always try to guess what your audience would like if you know who your audience is. That's why target audience is so important to figure out. Next, we're talking about virtual sets. This doesn't really have anything to do with this semester, but it was something that we haven't talked about yet, and so I figured I'd put it in here. So virtual sets, also called virtual production. It's a pretty recent technology that is becoming more mainstream in film as time passes. It works by having a massive LED screen that semi-wraps around where the actor is, or the subject. It's being used in place of green screen because it allows better performance by the actor, because they can actually see what their character would be looking at, making it easier to imagine. in this image, you can see like he has what looks to be a snowmobile, and there's a little bit of foreground ice and snow elements that he can mess around with. But in a green screen setup, all you would see is a big giant light green screen behind him, nothing else. But in this kind of setup, in this new technology with virtual production, he can look out and he can see exactly what that character would be seeing when they're looking off to the distance. Now he can actually look off to the distance and he can see this little mountain, or he can look up at this other screen and see kind of the sky up there and look all around. He's kind of wrapped around into a virtual world, which is why it's, virtual production. So it helps the characters, it helps the actors place themselves in the character's mindset. Instead of just pretending that something's there, they can see it and actually start to believe it a little bit more. It all allows, virtual production also allows lighting from the image to reflect more realistically off of a subject or the foreground. With a green screen setup, you have to light the green screen and make it all even and evenly lit. And so it is very bright and very different maybe from what the final footage will look like. And you have to the cinematographer has to set up, or the gaffer has to set up the lights in a way that matches what the end footage will be. But in a virtual production setting, the light coming off of the screen of the LEDs will actually imitate and mimic what the final footage will look like. You can see that on the floor right here. Bless you. You can see that on the floor right here. You can see like part of the tree, and you can see right above the tree, it's the sky in the background, and you can see the different colors reflecting all across the floor. So if we can put a subject in there, maybe they have a shiny helmet or glasses or something like that. All of these colors that we're seeing around the area are going to reflect off those things more realistically than they would if they were a green screen, where post-production would have to figure out what is reflecting and what isn't. And it might look a lot more like they are on a green screen because the lighting just isn't realistic enough. And so virtual production kind of eliminates that issue by having what the final image is going to look like already there, so that it reflects realistically off of the subject in the foreground. Virtual production also allows filmmakers to adjust the background on the spot so they can change the viewing angle or the set design or move elements within it by utilizing video game technology. It's running on a video game engine, and so it's kind of like video game development. If you're there on set messing around with the map, you can change basically you can change the level design or the background image or whatever you want to call it in this instance, where you can, oh, that tree is too in the way, he's looking off to the sun, we need to get this tree out of the way. You can just take it and move it over to the side, or you can turn the whole screen to the other side and kind of adjust where you want the character to be looking or what you want to be happening in the background, so that you don't have to wait and see in post-production. And that way, some of the problems that might arise in post-production from like a green screen setup, where you already have the lights set up where you want the sun to be, you don't have to worry about that as much because you can set it up in person on the spot and kind of get a feel of where the sun will be and where you want it based on that. Instead of getting into post-production and being like, oh, well, we have the sun coming from the right, but I really think it would look better coming from the middle or the left. But all the lighting is coming from the right, so now we just have to do it like that. So it gives a little bit more of a creative freedom to adjust things on the spot and get it really looking how you want. The background is photorealistic 3D imaging that's borrowing tech from the video game industry, and that's how it is able to be moved around, adjusted, and everything like that. The 3D image can move with the camera movements, which is known as the camera view frustum, which can change the background by moving it certain ways against the camera movement itself. So you have that whole screen, and you have the camera frustum, which is this little tiny box in the middle, which is basically showing what the camera is seeing. So that's what the virtual camera is seeing this. And so you match the virtual camera to the actual camera, and you have to have a motion controlled camera to do this, but a motion capture camera. And you use that motion capture camera to capture the actor in the background, and it's connected to that virtual camera so that it can see and look around this virtual world that it's in. And so that little square shows you what that camera is seeing in the background while you're filming the actor. And if you're gonna pan it over to the right, if you're gonna pan it over to the left, it's going to either move to the right or the left of this background so that it moves with that actor, making that camera movement more realistic, or making the movement in the background more realistic to the camera anyway. Again, you can see the same thing. This is that camera frustum thing. It's the little part that the camera is actually seeing. You can see where this rock changes right there. That's because the background, if we were to pan up or tilt up, we would start to see this part of the screen in the camera and it would look different. They messed with the settings and made the distances different, which is why this rock on top looks bigger. The camera's not seeing that part of the screen. That's just for the camera operator and the production crew to see, so that they can see how much room they have left to move up, down, over to the left, right, wherever. And the box is actually what the camera is seeing while he's recording this person in front of this image. Like I said, motion capture cameras are able to connect with the background so that it moves when the camera does. And that's why that box appears. Otherwise, it just looks like a whole setup. So that ends that projector behind the actor technique that older movies utilized. I mean, maybe not ends, but it's kind of taking that and green screen and combining it. Because the other technique you would use is putting a projector behind the actor and playing footage while the actor's actually there on set. But any camera movement you did or any movement within the screen, it made it kind of look fake, because as he's moving this wheel around, the footage isn't changing. You know, he's not going to the right and the left, he's just kind of moving the wheel. So he's going straight pretty much. I mean, he's barely moving. And it doesn't look like he's moving back and forth because the car itself isn't moving to the left and right. But if we played this on an LED screen and we had the virtual production, the camera would be attached to the background and the background would be moving in the same way that he's moving or how the camera's moving. And that would make it look a lot more realistic and feel like we're actually seeing something real instead of seeing a projector behind an actor. And you can see it like stuff like this, where the car's barely moving, but something in the background's moving a lot, or the lighting just doesn't match up, or whatever. The technique can work to an extent, but any camera movement that happens, they usually didn't really do camera movement. And the reason why was because the footage is going to stay like that. It's going to be at that angle. So if we're going panning left while turning the camera right, or no, sorry, if we're tracking left while panning right, that footage in the background is going to stay looking at that side of the road right behind them. And so even though we're looking at the side of the actors, we're not going to see this part of the background become the new image. It's still going to look like this, and it's going to be obvious that the illusion is going to go away completely in that moment. And so, you know, that's why that technique isn't really utilized as much anymore, if at all. Now it's either green screen and most recently virtual production. Because now the camera, you can see right here, it is reacting in real time with the movement, creating a more realistic viewing experience. Now it's mainly about what the background looks like and how realistic it looks, and whether it's, you know, blurred out or completely in focus, about how realistic it looks. But the movement itself and the lighting become a lot more realistic because of the things I just talked about, which makes it a much better experience for viewers. This next stuff comes from Insider. It's letter B in the syllabus. Why the Mandalorian uses virtual sets over green screen. Movies Insider. Like I said, the screen gives off light, so you don't have to light it the same way you would a green screen, which allows lighting conditions to better match before even getting into post-production. Also with green screen, anything that is shiny or transparent might pick up spill, which you can see on the left. It causes that like kind of green line, and it makes it harder to key out later. And it also makes it harder to get the colors right later. And so using a green screen, you have to really consider, like, people can't wear green because that's going to try to key out with the green screen. You have to use blue screen instead. And so if somebody has a green, I think Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man wears blue and red, so he had to be in front of a green screen. But Green Goblin has green, so he had to be in front of a blue screen. So they could never really be in the same area doing their fight scenes. If they were in a virtual production set, they could both be wearing what they're wearing and be in the same area, the same foreground. So green screen gives off that spill and makes it a little bit harder to key out, but it also is you have to think about a lot of things to make sure it's not going to mess it up, like something shiny or glasses or something transparent that's see-through, like a glass that somebody's holding, because those are a lot harder to get right, to make those light rays wrap around the cup in the right way and make it match the background sort of, and how the light would reflect. With virtual production, it would just automatically do those things because the light is already coming off of the screen. Also, building with virtual sets for the background allows for less space to be taken up and less materials to be used or rented or bought, because anything you're building, if you're just going to build it in a 3D world, you just have to make sure you have those assets digitally. And you can use mega scans, stuff like that, to get some really photorealistic rocks and items and deserts and landmarks and landscapes, and put those all together to make some kind of virtual set. And then if you need to change it around or build a new one, you don't have to buy new materials to build these things. You can just do it all digitally. So you have less physical space that you need. All you really need and want is a few foreground elements so that the actors can mess around with stuff in the foreground as well as see the background, just like you would if you were doing green screen. And you need, of course, the backdrop of the screen in different locations, many scenes and shots. And many scenes and shots can be captured that way. If you have the same screen, but you're just changing the location completely, all the lighting's going to be different and it's going to look like a completely different background, but you didn't move. So it's the same as doing green screen, but it is quicker when you actually have the stuff set up already. It's more time in pre-production, but less time in post-production, because you have to set it up before you get to set. Whereas green screen, you can have an idea of it, but you don't necessarily need to have it ready when you're actually doing the green screen footage. Of course, some productions will have, even if they're doing green screen, they'll have the location ready and they'll be showing the actor what it looks like. But again, it's just kind of harder to imagine while you're staring at a screen like what's on the floor here. It just doesn't seem like anything in real life, because it's not. It's something completely different so that the movie can do what it needs to do. But with that virtual production, again, with the virtual screen you're kind of seeing what it will look like. So you can kind of imagine it a little bit better. Feel like you're in that world more. And the backdrops in the virtual production, they can do both indoor and outdoor shots, and they can all be captured that same way. Animators working with virtual productions have real-time capabilities to adjust lighting, making it day or night, or just adjusting the lighting in another way. They can adjust the color. They can adjust any kind of animation that's in there. And fill lighting can be adjusted on the spot when set up correctly with other systems. So if they connect it to some kind of control device, they can easily just flip a switch or make slight little adjustments to the lighting or where things are located or the color of everything, making it warmer or cooler or giving it a different color grade right there on the spot. Doesn't mean they're always going to, but it means that they can do that, which is cool and different and interesting for anybody who likes technology and film. Like I said, they can also move objects or scenery within the virtual set, like as if they were doing level design and game development. And that way they can, if the director gets there or somebody on set says the actor maybe doesn't like how it looks, or like brings up something that makes sense that they didn't think of before, like why am I looking off this way? Or why did I just talk about coming out from that side if all there is trees over there? Shouldn't there be something over there that I come out of? And then they're like, oh yeah, and then they can add something in or change it around to make it make more sense for the context of the film or the scene. Part of the screen can also be used and changed to look like a green screen. And that way, if something needs to change or a different look is going to be used later on, they can do that in post-production. And on the screen itself, it'll look exactly like a green screen would, but it'll be coming from the screen instead of having to be lit. So it'll be lighting itself because it's coming off of a LED screen. So it makes it a little bit easier to light because it's already evenly lit, and it can be done to remove people or remove objects and kind of readjust the scene later if there's no time to do it there on the spot or in pre-production before they get to that point. The major downside with virtual production right now is the cost. It can cost a lot of money to set up this kind of studio, which is why it is right now used mostly in larger productions where they're utilizing these techniques. Another downside is the possible larger amount of pre-production work that you'd have to do to prepare for shooting, whereas green screen work like keying and creating the set extensions can happen in post-production for the most part, depending on how the production's set up. However, the more time passes and the more this is used, the cheaper and more available it'll become. And there are also studios beginning to pop up, allowing the space to be rented as you would any other studio space that utilizes, but these ones utilize virtual production. So that's pretty cool. And I think as more of these become available and prices become more competitive, this form of film production will become more available even for indie filmmakers. And that leaves a lot of options open if you get used to working on this kind of tech. I recommend checking out Film Riot's video on this. It's actually letter E in the syllabus. The video is called Virtual Production Using Unreal Like the Mandalorian, because they showed the steps they took, and there's quite a lot of them, to make a more independent friendly version of virtual production. They used a projector in place of an LED screen, and they ran Unreal Engine through their computer to adjust it in real time. And so there are ways, and there are independent filmmakers that are making kind of like setups similar to what virtual production is right now, but without having to have the money to set up a huge virtual screen and have the space for all of that or have the money to rent out that kind of space. So that is cool that they're finding workarounds. One of the main things you need to do with virtual production is getting the distances right. Setting the virtual camera in the right place so that it matches the real camera and gets the correct, what's called parallax effect, so that the movements match the distances of the foreground elements in the mid and background as well. Parallax effect is when items closer to us appear to be moving faster than objects that are at a greater distance. So if you're looking off to a mountain and there's a tree in the way, in this case, they're driving, you are going to see a very different image depending on what side of that tree you're at. And you can still see the exact same thing in the background because of how far off that mountain is. And so when you're using virtual production, it's all 2D. It's a 3D environment, but the screen itself is 2D. So if you don't match it up correctly, it's not going to adjust right. And the certain distances of things aren't going to look right. And when you move the camera, if you don't set it up correctly, the foreground elements or the things that are supposedly closest to the actor are going to move the same amount as the things that are supposedly far away. And that's why you have to set it up with a what's it called? A 3D capture camera so that you can attach it to that virtual camera and make sure that it is in the same spot that a real camera would be if it were in that location. You actually have to have those mountains off pretty far in the distance because it's a 3D landscape. So it actually really does need to be far away so that the tree moves how it should. And that way, we're not seeing the tree move exactly the same distance as the mountain whenever we're panning to the left or right. The tree should be moving at a lot quicker pace because it should be much closer than that mountain is. And so that is one of the hardest things to get right when you're first starting out, or so I've heard anyway. When you're talking about virtual production is like the parallax, getting the parallax right is just the hardest thing to do because you have to make sure the virtual camera is in the right location at the right angle in the right spot so that when you're moving your real camera around, it looks like it's in that exact spot in that scene, in that setting. I also recommend Film Riot's other video, it's letter H in the syllabus. The video is how to place yourself in a 3D spaceship, Unreal Engine 5 tutorial. Actually, I don't know if that's the one I'm thinking of. Because, but if it is, but they show how they use this with green screens to get movements right and to see what they were doing while filming. So they used a green screen instead. You know what? That's letter G in the syllabus. Virtual production with a green screen Unreal Engine. So that's theirs. And they show how, again, you can do it on a cheaper budget with a green screen, but you still have to do a few steps and techniques to get it to that point where you can take advantage of the moving background in the virtual camera. You also have to have a camera that is 3D capture to be able to capture those, or motion capture, not 3D capture, and able to capture those movements that you're actually making in the real world. So the virtual camera does the same. Otherwise, it won't work. To use the virtual environment, you have to have the real camera. You have to add motion trackers around the room for reference points. That would be like these little red cameras, basically. And the camera itself has to have some sort of motion tracking device on it, as well as these reference point cameras or reference point markers or whatever they are. And that's how you get motion tracking. And that way all the movements are tracked. And like I said, it matches that virtual world. You're saying, this is the space And if I move this way in the virtual world, I move this way. And here's the reference, because this is that tree in the background, and this is the mountain, and this is the other tree, and this is the water, and this is that, and that, and that. And then when you're moving your camera closer to this side of the room, you're getting closer to that tree because you said, you know, this spot is that tree. And that's basically how it works. This has a tracker, and all of these are reference points so that it tracks exactly what you're doing on this kind of fit. Like, you can't see it, but it's like a grid-like structure that it makes and creates so that it can track where you're going. All in all, it solves the issues of green screens and front or rear projection by combining both, and looks to be more and more common as well as accessible in the coming years. And it's something that I've seen a lot of people excited about. And honestly, if it does become more available, it'll be really cool to take advantage of, because it'll be a lot cheaper to do eventually than trying to go on location or trying to do stuff through green screen and creating all this stuff. If you can do it through like an Unreal Engine and they already have all of the assets available for you, and you just utilize those assets to make your own kind of level or make your own background, then you can get some really cool stuff. I've already seen people that have been using it, independent filmmakers and large budgeted films or TV shows like The Mandalorian, and it looks really good. You can hardly tell that it's a screen for some of the shots, most of the shots, I'd say. And it's because of that motion tracking and just the hyper realism that we're able to get from mega scans with these video game assets now. And I think, you know, with years from now, we're also going to upgrade those systems and it'll just keep getting better. So I think that eventually it'll be not just available to everybody, but you'll be able to get some really hyper realistic assets without having to do a lot of work. Maybe pay a little bit of money. Some of the stuff will be free and it'll be just like how we're doing it now, but I think it'll be a lot more easy and accessible. And the main problem will just be setting up the system and learning the tech of it. But other than that, does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything to add about virtual production?
Yeah. Now, what's the cost roundabout?
The cost right now to set it up, I think it's several million. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a reason why you have to just go to a studio space and rent it out. It's because it's very expensive to set up with all of the LCD panels that you would need to set up this huge wraparound, and just the space you would need to set it up in. Because they also have the LED panels at the top to make the lighting on top look like the sky, and then they have the all around surrounding like half of the subject or more. Some of them I've seen, they wrap around almost completely and just leave like a small gap for where the camera and crew can be. And then others have like a half wall or something that's kind of just a curved screen looking like, but they're massive. And so they have to have a lot of LED panels and, you know, a lot of space. And then all of the computing it has to do to handle all of that usually requires several computers, high-end computers that are running at very high specs. And then, you know, a motion capture camera and the motion capture devices for reference points. So it's a pretty expensive setup. And that's why I think it's not available to independent film makers. Not yet. But when more of these start coming out, the studio spaces start acquiring these and making them, and there's more popping up, I think that's when the prices will get more competitive. They'll be more available, so people will be able to rent it without having to wait weeks or months to get access to it. And I think that's when you'll start seeing it start to take off a lot more, especially if there's somebody that can come out with a camera that is cheaper, kind of like how Blackmagic came out with their camera that was really good quality. And but it was cheap for all independent filmmakers and stuff. And so everybody got it. I think some company, maybe that one or another one, will come out with some kind of motion capture camera that's a cheaper end one, or something that kind of has the capabilities of blending a few of these things together so you don't need those reference points, or several different things. I don't know. There's probably something that will come out eventually that'll solve some of these problems of cost. And I think that's when you'll start seeing independent filmmakers really utilize this technology.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I haven't really brought it up yet, because it's kind of out of grasp for a lot of us, but I do think it's really cool and something unique, and something that is definitely going to start taking over filmmaking as time goes on. There'll be less and less green screen setups and more virtual production setups, less and less on location shoots and more just virtual production shoots. That's what I think anyway. Who knows? But yeah. All right, guys, other than that, I just want to say that remember that the 2 exercises, there will be 4 in total, but the 2 that we've already given out, they're going to be due December 1st. That is the script analysis exercise and the website creation exercise. Those are 2 of the ones that we have already announced. And again, there's going to be 2 more. Those are going to be due December 1st. So it's a little bit over a month until then. On Thursday, we're going to talk about pitching an idea, pitching a script, and pitching a finished film, and how they kind of differ, and who you might be pitching to in each of those instances and stages of pitching, and which one's the most difficult and going easier. And of course, pitching an idea is going to be the most difficult because you don't really have as much stuff to go off of or convince people with, because all you have is an idea. We're also going to be talking about a 60-30-10 rule. There's a few of them. There's the color rule, and there's 2 different advertising or marketing rules that I've found for marketing, and a 90-9-1 rule of engagement, as well as a 1-9-90 rule of influencer marketing. So those are the things we're going to talk about on Thursday. Does anybody have anything to add or ask before we say goodnight?
No. Okay.
Not today. I mean, looking over everything and looking forward to the next class. I may or may not be able to make it. I work again for the 31st of October. And then November, I'll be back to my usual schedule.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say before we say goodnight is next Monday, we won't be having a meeting because it is Halloween, October 31st. So we're actually going to do the next meeting on after Thursday. We're going to do our next meeting next Tuesday, November 1st. We're going to be watching the next independent film and going over their marketing and their social media and all that stuff like we did with the last one. All right, guys, I hope you all have a good night and a good week up until Thursday, and I hope to see you guys there.
Sounds good. See you then.
All
Bye.
right.
And good night, guys.